Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a city that's, well, kind of fascinatingly contradictory. The Dunedin, you probably know it as the Edinburgh of the South. And our mission here is to get you quickly up to speed on this place because it's defined by these layers that almost seem like this shouldn't fit together. How can a city built on, strict Scottish Victorian plans and a whole lot of gold rush money also be so deeply shaped by ancient indigenous principles?
Right. How do you square that? Cathedral spires and ancestral guardianship, gold fever, and lo-fi indie rock.
Exactly. It's quite the mix.
And it's really that combination, that synthesis of these powerful, sometimes clashing layers that makes Dunedin so interesting to unpack. So we'll get into its ancient roots. The Manawenua then explore that big architectural legacy and finally connect it all to the creative scene, especially that iconic Dunedin sound.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The absolute foundation. We need to talk about the history of people being there, which goes back, centuries?
Oh yeah, a long time. Archaeological evidence suggests occupation from around 1000 AD. It starts with the Iwi and Hapu groups, usually called Waitaha.
And that early history is key, isn't it? It sets up the relationship with the land way before any Europeans arrived.
Absolutely crucial, because that lineage continues. You then have the Kadimomo people moving south, maybe around 1550 AD, and then about a century later, Kaitahu arrived.
Right.
And through, conflict, but also alliances, strategic marriages, these groups eventually kind of merge into the collective tribal authority we know today as Kaitahu Wanui. That's the current Manawenua, the people of the land.
And isn't there a specific linguistic thing in Dunedin, a marker that really signals that deep local identity?
Yes, exactly. It's quite distinct. You'll hear local Maori often use a K sound instead of the more common enge. So they'll say kaikau, not ngaitahu.
Oh, okay.
And they talk about mahikakai instead of maingakai for traditional food gathering. It's subtle, maybe, but it's a real marker of that regional dialect.
So we have this really deep ancient history, this established authority and responsibility. How does that, the Manawenua authority actually translate into real rules for running a modern city today? I mean, we're not just talking symbolism here, are we?
No, not at all. And this is where you really see that interesting tension play out. The Dunedin City District Plan, that's the city's core planning rulebook. It has to formally recognize and provide for the relationship of Maori with their ancestral resources.
It has to.
Yes, it's legally underpinned by the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi. So the council has these three key responsibilities baked into their planning.
Okay, what are they?
Well, first, they have to recognize and provide for the Maori relationship with the Manga. So treasured possessions, resources, ancestral lands, and especially Wahitapu, the sacred sites.
Right.
Second, they have to pay particular attention to Kaitiakitanga. That's the principle of guardianship.
Kaitiakitanga, guardianship. That feels really significant, like a long-term commitment.
It is. It's about protecting things now for the future generations. It's more than just resource management. It's a spiritual, a cultural duty. You can think of it like managing the harbor today, knowing your great-grandchildren are watching you. And the third point is they must take the treaty principles into account across the board in decision-making.
Okay, so guardianship, Kaitiakitanga, let's dig into that a bit. You mentioned protecting resources. What kind specifically?
Well, you see that spiritual connection clearly when you look at what needs protection. Wahitapu are the sacred sites. Think old fortified settlements, kala sites like Horiawa, Maputahi, Pukakura. Also burial grounds, urupa, and battle sites. These places demand absolute protection.
Got it. And what about resources needed for, cultural survival, sustenance?
Right. Those are covered under Wahitaka. These are treasured resources essential for keeping those cultural links strong. This includes things like estuaries, native plants and animals, and really importantly, mahikakaya, the traditional ways of gathering food and resources.
So if someone wants to build something, say a new industrial park or housing, and it might impact a traditional fishing spot or maybe a historic past site, the council can't just nod politely. Policy 5.3.1 means they have to actively consult Manawenua.
That's exactly right. The policy mandates consultation on notified resource consent applications. It forces those tribal values right into the planning process. It means decisions about resources have to aim for outcomes that are sustainable and culturally okay, which often means developers have to compromise. It's really a structure of shared, deep responsibility.
Okay, so we've got this ancient bedrock of responsibility, the Manawenua framework. Now let's talk about the next huge layer that got poured right on top, the Scots. arriving with, well, a very specific vision.
He had a very specific name. The city is literally named after Dunedin in Scottish Gaelic. When Captain Cargill and Reverend Burns led the settlers there in 1848, they brought surveyor Charles Kettle along. His job, replicate Edinburgh's romantic town plan.
Even on Dunedin's really challenging terrain, right? The steep hills. Ooh.
Exactly. They were determined. But the plan alone wouldn't have created the city we see today. What really cemented that Edinburgh of the South feel wasn't just the blueprint. It was sudden, massive wealth.
The Otago gold rush in the 1860s.
Bingo. It just flooded the city with cash. For a while, Dunedin was actually New Zealand's biggest city. And all that money meant architects and builders could basically go wild realizing that Scottish vision. That's why you have this incredible collection of really ornate Victorian and Edwardian buildings.
But hang on, when you think about that level of Victorian building, huge, ornate structures built with wealth from digging gold out of the ground, doesn't that clash directly with the Kaitiakitanga, the guardianship principles we just talked about?
That is the core tension in Dunedin. You've hit it exactly. The architecture represents enormous colonial ambition, resource extraction, gold, limestone. Meanwhile, the Manawaniowa framework is all about long-term sustainability, spiritual connection, maybe even restraint.
So these two big ideas are just physically stacked right on top of each other.
Pretty much. The buildings are stunning, no doubt, but they're also monuments to an economy based on extraction.
And the building that maybe screams gold rush money the loudest has to be the Dunedin railway station.
Oh, absolutely iconic. The architect, George Troop, even got the nickname Gingerbread George for it. It opened in 1906, and it's just this flamboyant mix of styles, a bit classical, a bit neo-Gothic. They use a dark basalt stone and that bright white Oamaru limestone.
Like gingerbread, yeah.
And the level of detail is just incredible. The stonework, the mosaic floor in the booking hall, it just shows that money was truly no object when they were building their southern capital.
And out on the Otago Peninsula, that ambition gets even more, well, grand and isolated with Larnach Castle.
New Zealand's only actual castle is this huge personal project built in the 1870s. It took 200 workers 3 years just to build the main structure.
Wow.
And the master craftspeople spent over a decade just doing the inside, all the detailed carvings and plasterwork.
Yeah.
It's pure Gothic revival extravagance, this permanent statement of Victorian wealth looking out over the harbor.
Speaking of permanent statements, we can't really talk about Dunedin's landscape without mentioning the street that basically defies gravity, Baldwin Street.
Ah, yes. The perfect example of those planners sticking rigidly to the grid, no matter what the hills were doing. It's in the Guinness Book of Records, officially the world's steepest residential street. The gradient is something like 1 and 2.9. It's incredibly steep.
It looks almost vertical in photos. People joke about needing climbing gear to get their mail delivered. Can you imagine living there? Apparently, the road surface had to be concrete because asphalt would just slide downhill.
That tells you everything about how determined they were to stick to that original 1848 plan, doesn't it? If you want to see more of this history, the Toitū Otago Settlers Museum is great for the early settler story, and the Dunedin Public Art Gallery is worth seeing too. It was actually New Zealand's very first public art gallery, founded way back in 1884.